Jesse Chason with Lisa Blanchard as the host of Airing Addiction.
I share often my journey started on this campus. Got sober as a client here, just like you.
I really do see phenomenal change.
Always hope. I've seen situations that on the surface look impossible become possible.
Doing this podcast is to share those recovery stories, be honest about what the challenges are and have some real conversations, but kind of share that out on the airwaves.
Welcome, everybody. Happy February. Glad you're joining us today for a very special episode of Airing Addiction. Thank you, everyone that's either on Facebook watching this live. We'll see it later on one of your favorite podcast platform. Thank you so much for tuning in, and just know that we are very grateful that you took the time to spend with us, and we intend to maximize that time with wonderful guests such as who we have today. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to introduce our guest. Who are we talking to today, Lisa?
Thanks so much, Jesse. I've been looking forward to this hour of our time all week long, and really for several weeks now. So the guest that we're about to introduce, I've had the wonderful opportunity to meet in person, to spend some time with. Recently, we just presented at a local high school, every grade, full school assemblies. It was super fun. But I'm really, really excited for us to welcome Darryl Buchannan today. Darryl is a published author, and he's the host of Real Talk TV. So folks can find his show. We'll let him talk about that today too. On YouTube, you can kind of pull up all of the great work that he's doing, but he really spends a lot of his time, his person in long-term recovery, but he focuses a lot of his time on educating, youth, educating individuals around him about substance use and about the criminal justice system. And so take it from me, we would probably go a few minutes over. We're going to have some great conversation today. But with that, I'm going to kick it over to you, Darryl, right? You share with us as much as you want about, your own recovery story. Go ahead and share as much as you'd like with us.
Hey, thank you, guys. I'd like to thank you guys for having me. Thank you, Jesse, Lisa, and James. My name is Darryl Buchanan. I'm from Lowell, Mass. I grew up in a family. It was 7 of us in a 4-bedroom apartment in the projects in Lowell, a project called Bishop Markham. It was a close neighborhood, but there was just a lot of dysfunction in the neighborhood, and the dysfunction was just like normal, though, right? It wasn't something that I look back now and say, whoa, what was I into or what was around me? But it was very dysfunctional. We had like everything from, I'm talking about drugs, drug dealers, drug addicts, gangs, pimps, prostitutes, just everything. And I think for me, it was just so normal. And my mom was a single mother, God rest her soul, she did the best she can with what she knew. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I kind of understand she only had the information that she had, right, to pass down. And she was raising 7 kids, very close in age, all by herself. For me, it just started, she used to have these guys come over and this couple used to come over to the house, and they used to drink and listen to music. My mom was a fun mom. She was known as the best dresser in the neighborhood. She was a drinker. She never knew that she was alcoholic. I never knew she was an alcoholic, right, until later in life when I started getting into the program, started understanding wow, those people that came around us, they were all into alcohol, very, very badly. In fact, we've lost me and my friends back to back, they lost their mothers and fathers in rows, like in the 80s and 90s, like people was dropping in. And it wasn't for opiates and that, it was alcoholism, right? When we look back. But she did the best she can. Me, we didn't have much. I was young. I remember at 8 years old, I used to clean up the cans of beer around the house after a night of partying they had, and I would take some in the bathroom and sip off it. And then I started stealing cans of her Schlitz malt liquor and sharing it with one of my best friends, and we'd go in the hallway and drink. And for me, it was fun. Then I just started going into the streets. The more, my mom's, she couldn't control me. I'm talking about at 12 or 13, I'm sniffing cocaine. I'm in the streets with the older guys, not coming home, not going back to school. And when I did go to school, I would always go back there just to disrupt it. I wouldn't go unless I was drinking or I was sniffing cocaine. Weed wasn't really my thing. I think I did try weed, but cocaine became like that thing at 12 or 13 that I loved, right? The older guys in the neighborhood took advantage of that instead of, because me and my best friend, God rest his soul, he passed, but we would do anything for it. And they would send us on missions downtown low, and we'd go steal bags full of whatever they told us and bring it back to them, and they would purchase more drugs, and we got to hang out with them. These are the guys that made everything look cool. These are the guys that we looked up to. So at 13, I was out there running. You gotta remember, at the age of 10, it was so crazy. I mean, I got arrested at the age of 10 for a B&E, right? This guy had convinced me and my friend to sleep into a store. 15 minutes before it closed, we hid. And when it closed, we came out like an hour or two later and had the store to ourselves. And this was around Christmas time. And I remember, like, man, being in the store and like we had anything. So that was like my padding, and that's how it started for me. And at 10, I was arrested, and at 13, I was sent. Massachusetts kicked me out of Massachusetts, and they sent me to Maine. Let me regress a little bit. So things were happening in the house, right? She had this friend that her boyfriend would come in after everybody was drinking and drunk and come into my room and molest me and do things with me. You know what I mean? I didn't know what to do about this monster. I guess in some ways, looking back at now, I thought like maybe I was afraid of him too, because he used to threaten me. So I was really afraid that he would do something to my mom or one of my siblings. So he continued it. It kept continuing. And one day I told my mom, and she didn't believe me. And I think that, and nobody in the family believed me. And I think that's when I really like severed ties emotionally and mentally, and in some ways physically, with my family, right? I just felt they were all in cahoots and they didn't care about me. I was the least kid on the totem pole in the house. I just started feeling it. I already had issues, so that just compiled. And I went to the streets, 100%. At 13, after running for 3 years, in the streets, Massachusetts was tired of me. They said, we need to get him out of there, because they said they saw something in me. But, I was disruptive and low. So at 13, they sent me to a place in Maine. It was a boys' home. Never been to Maine, never been out of really my circumference of my block, right? It was just my block. So I'm in Maine and culture shocked. I was at this place called Bethany Acres, and I went there, and beautiful place I've never seen such a beautiful. I used to see that stuff on TV, those type of big giant houses, and like I'm talking about mega houses, right? And they had 3 of them on this compound. And so I went there, and the guy that was kind of like the host of the youth, he had graduated that program. His family never came and got him, so he stayed on. Like kind of monitor. I thought he was just the eyes for the people that ran the place, right? And he would molest us. I come to find out why everybody was scared. He was a lot bigger than us. He was older. And he would basically pick one of us every night and molest all of us. So it was a lot of molestation going on, and it continued. At that point, it was just like that's how I just felt like, that's what it was for me, right? I remember being in Winthrop High. I was the only black kid I've ever seen in Maine. The whole 2 years I was there, I've never seen a person that looked like me. So I went to Winthrop, Maine, was culture shocked, because I come from a diverse community, right? And so that just created a whole nother level for me. So I'm there, and I remember people used to stare at me all the time. I went to junior high, and people used to just stare at me everywhere I walked, and it was just very uncomfortable. And I didn't know how to adjust, to adapt, right? I just started being disruptive again. At the compound, I would be disruptive, break windows. I would throw rocks at the animals because they had cows. Every animal you can imagine in these big orchards. So I would just abuse animals, throw rocks and stuff like that, because I didn't know, And they started like, oh, this guy, he's hard to change, right? Because that's all I could do. I was really angry. And I just remember it even hurts now going back there because I like animals, but it's like, wow, why was I doing that? So anyways, I made a friend with a guy named Dana Maxim, and he was a basketball star, track star. He was just this star from Winthrop. And so when I made friends with him, we became cool, and then I became a little bit more accepted. I could sit at the pool table and all that other stuff in Maine, and my color really didn't matter as much at that point. And I think it didn't matter to me. I felt a little bit more comfortable being there. Let's put it that way. But so I told Dana what happened and what was going on, because he said he always had rumors about that place when he knew where I lived. I said, I lived up at this place, and kind of confided into him a little bit of my story. He's like, yeah, that place is weird, blah, blah, blah. And he just didn't know how weird it really was. So I confided to him, and his mom, he told his mom, who I used to go over the house, and they confronted me and asked me, and I said yes. And I even went to the Williams, the people that ran the place, and they said, he's just pulling a move so he can get back to Massachusetts. So all my cries were just like, yo, Larry's raping us, no. And some of the kids were like, no, they were just in agreement with me. I'm like, yo, you were in the room last night, right? But so his mother confronted it and called DYS at the time. And my social worker came up, and they snatched me out. And I was sent, after 2 years, left there, just abruptly left. And they sent me to I didn't go back to Lowell. They sent me to Mattapan, to a people called the Williams. So I went to a foster home from there straight that day. And now I'm in Mattapan. I don't see white people. I see all black people right on the street. I'm just being, you know what I mean? And I say that just because of the way that culturally messed me up, because I came from a place I'd never seen stuff like that. So I'm in Boston now, and these people, I don't even like these people. They were making me just do stuff, make me do. They had 2 other kids there that were their own, and I used to make me do the chores, make me clean up after dogs. And they had these 2, Doma Pinch and a German Shepherd, and make me clean that. And there was no love there. I was probably just a check. So I started hanging out with the kids on the block. There was a lot of gangs right on my street, drug dealing, Wilson Street in Mattapan. Yeah, I got right back into linking up with people like me. And I started back to my cocaine use and all this other stuff. And there was a lot of abuse happening there. So I ended up robbing them. I had to get away from there. I took their jewelry box, gave it to this girl's uncle, and asked him, man, to just take me back to Lowell. You know what I mean? And we got some drugs. He took me back to Lowell. He's nodding off all the way damn near on the highway. And I get back to Lowell and at 15, and I'm in the streets again. My addiction is, I didn't know at the time I was an addict, but I'm out there, using cocaine. I couldn't live with it, couldn't live without it. I graduated to start shooting what this girl taught me about sticking the needle in, and I started that, fell in love with that immediately, and went on a crazy run. And that lasted for at least 20 years of my life, with the needle just running in and out, spending a lot of time. I'd be 4 months on the street, 2 years in jail, 4 months on the street, 3 years in jail. You know what I mean? Never really knowing, I was an addict. And here's the funny thing about it. I remember being just about to turn 18, and I'm in Walpole, and I have, track marks up and down my arm. And I would go to this, in Walpole, they're so separated, but you can meet, only place you can meet is at church and at meetings. Right, you can meet your buddy if he's on the other side of the prison. So we would all meet there, and we would sit in these meetings, and these people would come up and talk about being drug addicts, talk about being alcoholics. I'm talking about 18 years old, and I'm hearing it, and I'm seeing it, and I couldn't connect. I'm saying, man, these dudes are bums, man. I'm never gonna rob my mother. I'm never gonna yell out the damn garbage cans. We used to sit in the back, character assassinate them, and just talk about these people. And then we're in a maximum state prison. I got railroad tracks for arms, right? Up and down my arms. And even my friends, we all, in hindsight, we were all messed up. So they talked about this. And I remember, and this was the theme continuously. I'd go into prison, and I'd go to meetings to get 2.5 days or to meet with someone. And I always sat in the back and talked junk about people, man, calling these people bums. And I would never eat out of the garbage. I would never rob my mother. Man, I would never steal from my daughter. Or I would never leave my daughter, right? All this stuff, Yeah. And, you know, I became every one of those things, man. You know, everything that them people used to tell me since I was 18 years old, I've done it all. I've ate out of the garbage cans, right? I stole from my mother. I put a present under the tree for my daughter, right? And be happy. But when I run out of money, I go take the present out and wrap the empty box and leave the box there, right? Under the tree. So she's opening it. So I've done all that, you know what I mean? That they had told me that they were doing. And I just couldn't connect. You know, I didn't connect for a long time or accept the fact that I was an addict for a long, long time. I mean, in and out of the program. I've been around this program for years, right? Most of the time, you know, because the judge told me to go or because of probation told me to go. But really not because I identified myself as an addict, right? Or that I had a problem. I just felt that I needed to find a way to get high and lessen my consequences, right? In my mind, I wasn't slick enough to do both, right? How do I just go so far with this? How do I get high and do like some people I know, they get high and go home? Me, I'm looking for the after party, and the next after party, right? 4 days later, and I end up in handcuffs, right? So I don't know what it was about me that I couldn't connect. But anyways, so that story continued. We're talking about from 13 till I've got almost 6 years free of prison. So you're talking about 13 all the way to 54 years old, 41 years, and 28 of them in prison, right? And when I tell my story, I don't have those big Pablo Escobar stories. I don't have none of that. I went to jail for stealing just for the next hit. Just for the next one, not for piles. I went for the next hit. I spent 28 years in jails trying to get hits, right? You know, so it's amazing. So, you know, so I'm in and out of the program. A few times I say, you know, hey, you know, maybe I can go there because in the meetings, maybe they know how to get high without going to jail or without all these consequences. So that's why you should think. So that changed from I'll never be these people to damn, they know how to get high in these meetings. Because I never believed people really had clean time, these long clean time. I just never thought. I thought I was going to live and die an addict. And I just thought that's what happened. That's all I seen. Right. And I think for me, it was more of, you know, after I did a little work, it was more of a place where that became so acceptable. I grew up and that was normal. Right. So I had to change my mind, you know, change my thinking on that. It was just normal. That was like, excuse my French, but breastfed to me as a kid. You know what I mean? That was served to me, you know, and I think that was one of the barriers that, you know, kept me locked in for such a long time. Mentally, that was what, you know, I talk about this thing all the time where, you know, the environment, my environment played a crazy role, right? So I talk about, like, if you take a chicken egg and you take an eagle egg, right? And you put them both in a chicken coop and you come back 6 months later after they're both hatched, you're going to witness the eagle acting like a chicken, right? Because of his environment. He's still an eagle. He sees eagles flying in, but his mind not telling him to flap his wings. He's still got, that's how I felt in my environment. My whole, you know what I mean? I was taught that from day one, man. So I came out of the gate acting like a chicken, you know what I mean? When I was eagle all the time. But that's what happened to me. And not just me, but a lot of people that grew up in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? Even to this day, when I go back around there, I see the residue. I see that mentality still being passed down, you know what I mean? And, you know, chains are not really being broken as far as in my neighborhood. And that's why it was important for me to always go back and try to shine light. And I'd go back, right? And people, you know, that was doing good. And I didn't do the work that I needed to do. And guess what? Darryl's back in jail. Darryl's back on the corner. Darryl was getting high with the person he just at the tent that he was just trying to get people out of the tent, because I used to do a lot of outreach. So I'm getting in there talking to people, bringing them out and trying to be this thing. And next thing you know, I'm in the tent with this guy that I was just trying to get into a shelter. Now I need a shelter, right? Yeah. So it was this continuous thing, bro. It just became this continuous get up and fall. And but because I just couldn't embrace, you know, I think one thing that is helping me more than anything now is the all paths to recovery. It's so dope to have that, right? Because I could take this, I could take that. It's not one size fits all, right? Because I'm not a one size fits all type guy, right? And that wasn't how my disease worked for me. You know what I mean? Like I was talking yesterday, some people's insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. That wasn't my insanity. My insanity was doing the same thing over and over, knowing what the hell was going to happen and doing it anyway, right? So one size fit all didn't work for me, right? So this all paths to recovery where I could take pieces. I'm not, confined to just one thing. I think that has opened me up and it's been very helpful for me, But like I said, it has been years. I'm one of those bottom addicts that talked to me when I was 18 years old and first gave me that message. And I said I wasn't that person. And today I was clearly that person. They was talking to me. You know what I mean? So I say back now, imagine if I listened. So that's why it's important to try to pass a message, because you never know who's going to listen. But imagine if I listened, you know what I mean? The trajectory of my life would be totally different. And who knows, what it would be, but it would definitely be totally different. But at the same time, I accept what's going on today. I like myself. I know that, that I didn't ask to be abused, right? And I'm not taking, no responsibility, not, saying I'm not responsible for the way my life happened. I am totally responsible for it. But, I know these things that I wasn't responsible for. I used to blame myself for all that stuff. That I was a bad guy. I mean, sometimes it plays on your sexuality as a kid. I wonder if I'm this person. And then you started, it was a ball of confusion. And I was suffering inside and didn't know and didn't even know, right? And here's the thing is, and the pain never even, it hurt, but it never even got to a place where it's like I numbed myself all these years, man. Didn't have the inability to feel for anybody, anything. That's why I was allowed, and that's why I was able to do anything, like rob my own family. My mother was dying of cancer, and she had pain meds, and I would crush her pain meds up and take them and sell them as dummy bags so I can get some coke. I've done some stuff, man, I'm locked into this disease that when I sit back, I'm like, man, who was that person, right?
Yeah, I'd love to reflect a bit on your story on how you got there, and then we can shift to really the person you are today, which is just remarkable, and I'm grateful for. But one of the things I wanted to, as a clinician, right, which really sticks out for me is, and we hear this, time and time again, and I just want to thank you for your vulnerability and sharing so much of the detail of your story. But the world told you from a really early age that it's not going to take care of you, right? That the people who were responsible to protect you, to take care of you, aren't going to do that. And it didn't even matter when you were removed to another environment up in Maine, right? And things look different and people look different. And there were big houses and trees and all of the things that you weren't used to seeing still had the same experience. Those that were entrusted to take care of you did not. And I just think, you've got such insight on your environment and how that plays into your addiction story. And I just think that's really worth highlighting because, even the behavior that you started to display, whether it was the substances to escape from that or the acting out and throwing rocks and doing all of those things, all behavior is there to meet a need. And you had so many unmet needs that you were just trying to get something taken care of. And so, I know you have, and you've done a lot of the work, but I just really hope that, you give yourself some grace for that. And I appreciate you being vulnerable with your story, because in times in your addiction story in your life, when you were vulnerable and you shared what had happened to you, all that happened is you got moved to another terrible environment immediately, away from the friend that you had, away from any supports you had. And I just want to recognize the unbelievable resiliency, right? That I think is what makes you who you are today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate it very much. And that's the story is crazy. When I look at my own story, right? Because I'm in the middle of, I wrote like the first part, but I'm in the middle of writing Scars and Broken Pieces. And and I think when I started writing a story a few years ago, and that relapsing behind doing it, right? I got to that place where we're talking about all that stuff, and it started coming into my head. And then somebody said, you need some therapy, right? So I've been in therapy for 3 years now. I had one therapist who was amazing, and then I had to move from her and got a new one, and who's still amazing. But it's amazing, the healing, right? And because I have to heal, right, or die. What am I gonna do, right? I confront those ghosts, and those are some scary things. And when people say, the boogeyman lives inside me, right? That's for me. The boogeyman is an extension of me, right? And so that's what I'm dealing with, man. And I'm grateful. You know what I mean? I'm really grateful. For just to be able to wake up, right? Because at the end of this road, at the very end, and I'm talking about after this, relapsing, continuous relapsing. At the very end, right, I was in a hospital, and I remember I was conscious, but they had me on meds, and they was telling people to have people come see me because he's gonna die. Dude, I blew up like that. I'm sitting around the crack table, blowing up like the Nutty Professor. And I'm really literally meaning it. I blow up, and I couldn't even get to the place where I couldn't put shoes on, I couldn't walk, and I would not leave that damn crack table. And I remember waking up in the hotel and telling Katie, my significant other, I'm gonna die today. And I knew it, because I was just, everything was blown up. It was ridiculous, bro. And we called the ambulance, and when they came, they were like, whoa. And so I heard all that chatter while I was in the hospital, these doctors talking about me not making it through and just trying to make me feel comfortable, or I guess on my way out, whatever they were, the medication. And I remember praying, man, and just praying, because I had 2 kids. I'm like, man, this is how my story ends, man. Right? Like, damn, right? And now you want to listen, and you want to, and I think it wasn't bargaining with God at this time. I think it was like really sincere at this time, like, I am done, bro. You know what I mean? And yeah, the fluid started leaking on the next day, and I heard the nurse calling the doctor. It's coming out. It's leaking. You know what I mean? And I wasn't out of the woods, so I heard all this death talk. I couldn't move, and I'm like, I'm living. I want to live, right? And you want to live? I want to live. I don't want to die, right? Treacherous. And it wasn't, and at the fact, and I end with this, but the fact that it wasn't really that I was gonna die. I think at that point, the torturous part for me was like, damn, where am I going to go? Damn, where am I going to go, right? Because now it's like,
the question, Darryl.
That was the question,
Yeah.
Jesse.
That's
Where
a
am
deep
I going?
question.
They
Right?
tortured me, right? And all I had in my point of reference in my memory was negative, terrible, bad. Even the stuff that happened to me, all that stuff, I felt I was to blame for. I'm like, bro, this ain't gonna end right here. So that was the fear. I'm talking about terrified. That was terrified.
I can only imagine, Darryl, and I second what Lisa said, and wanted to thank you first off for sharing your story and being so vulnerable and sharing, the pieces of your story that I know were at once difficult, and I heard you even say that would cause a relapse or would up to a relapse by that unhealed trauma. And good for you for mentioning it, and anybody that's listening that has thought about once I get X number of whatever benchmark we put in front of us, I want to do this job, right? Because that is something that in my experience, for sure, I said once, and here I am, and I know many other people as well, and with lived experience. But the reality is, you have that experience. You said, you're trying to do outreach and helping people out of their tents, and then you're in the tent with them. You didn't get the healing, right? So I think that's great that you have that insight. It's really phenomenal, actually. Do you have that insight into, I need to be well before I help people?
Yeah.
I always use the example of the airplane. Will they taxi? They say in case of emergency, the air mask drops. Put on your own air mask before you help somebody else. And good for you, Darryl, for putting on your own mask.
Exactly.
So, to sort of transfer, and then I'd love to hear about what's going on with Darryl right now, because I know that's probably could be a whole nother podcast, but
Yeah.
I wanted to reflect something you said about, sitting in Walpole, turning 18, sitting in the back of the meetings, character assassinating everybody, saying, I'm not that bad, I'll never get there. That's something I hear often. That's something that, if people are in a situation where, they're going to meetings, forced, you talked about probation, you talked about, you said I needed to find a way to get high and lessen my consequences.
Yeah.
I thought that was a beautiful way of saying that, right? Maybe these people know something. I'll get high on the weekend. I don't know, right? But to anyone listening that's maybe kicking this, recovery thing around a bit, just show up. Just show up. I'm a firm believer in what's supposed to happen is going to happen. Darryl's a perfect example of this, of that, you go from, I'll never be those people to, well, hate to break it to you, Darryl, you're one of those people now.
Yes,
and you're
I am.
a guest on a podcast talking about your story.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear what's going on with Darryl. We mentioned, you have a TV show. We mentioned you're a published author. I would love for you to share a little bit about what recovery looks like for Darryl these days.
Bro, like I said, I really, respect all paths, man. I take a little, right now it's really more on the spiritual for me, right? Dealing with a pastor, I have a recovery coach who I deal with, but I'm really more on a spiritual thing right now. As far as on my recovery piece, I just feel that was the foundation. That was really the piece. Not only after I mentally started dealing with that, and because I was still stealing, right? I was going 5 years clean, and I was still stealing out of CVS. I mean, so there was a lot of stuff, criminal thinking, that I didn't even know about that stuff. I just thought I stole. It's just craziness, but I was always throwing rocks at the penitentiary, bro, with my behaviors, my attitudes, right? But, today is for me, it's on a spiritual. I love doing, I love listening to pastors in the morning. There's Pastor Tony Evans, who's so dope to me. And I've never had so, I connect with some pastors, but I've never heard a pastor talk about addiction the way he did and breaks it down. I listen to that all the time. I more like Zoom meetings now, right? Because I can go anywhere. I can get a meeting from New Zealand. So I do all that stuff. I show up. I'm at the Spectrum Center, the Recovery Connection here in Marble, Mass, where I sit now, right? I sit here. I come here. I remember being here 15 years ago on the run. My name was Get the Hell Out. That was my name, right? So I had nowhere to go. Everybody was looking for me, the courts, everybody, the dealers. So I had nothing. Here's why I came to Marlboro. A friend was up here, said, come to Marlboro, come to a meeting. I went to a meeting, started coming here 15 years ago when they moved here. And the first place that I felt that I've been embraced, man. Never been judged here. And if I has, I never felt it, right? The people here. So I've been coming here off for 15 years. I mean, I'd relapse, come back and relapse. But came back, this time after COVID, and they had a new executive director, Athena. Talked to her, and I knew her from Everyday Miracles. Always respected the way she I respected the way she educates. She's more like a teacher, so I like to be around her a lot whenever she's around because I learn stuff from her. Right, stuff like her recovery is on another level. And people, that's what I learned. People's recoveries are different and on different levels, and you can learn from that. But I come here to be a support. We're in the rebuilding stage. I feel my best, to invest in this center and to be a part of this center and to see it get back to where it was. It's just, these are my visions. It's beautiful. I'm here on a regular basis. Here with Carmen. We got a new director who's just, phenomenal and just motivated. I mean, even did outreach with me, right? You heard me go, beautiful, right? You're like, oh, somebody that up there, you just never think that they would do. A lot of people don't do what they would have you do, but I don't get that here. So anyway, the peers are good. It's a good center, and we're doing our thing here. But I just I'm a father again. You know what I mean? You guys know my daughter. She's 37. She experienced everything I just told you about all these years in and out. But me and her have a good relationship today. She respects me as a dad again. I have two little ones, 4 and two, who just like God gave me another chance to be that guy, right, on a healed, right. So that I enjoy that, there's a parenting. There's times when I'm yeah, but then there's times like you look at their face and like, oh, you know what I mean. So they're my motivation. Yes, I'm a writer. I think I wrote for a long time. I always wanted to write, but I think as a young kid, I used to hide in the library. When things got bad or abused, that would be my place to go. I would hide in the library and just be around books. So books have always been like my thing. I remember in the penitentiary, that's all I did. I was known as the book man. I didn't want canteen, send me books, send me anything. So I learned a lot of stuff about publishing. I learned a lot of stuff about writing, self-taught myself that. I build programs, write grants. I've learned all that in jail. So so I do that now. I got I got a book. I got a bunch of things now. I got this book. It's I Love Me. It's a woman's self-love first book. I created a publishing company with my kid's name on it. Daze Publishing. Darryl, it's the acronym Darryl and Zayla. So that's my kids, my family. And me on the back. I did that. And this is them on the cover of the first gratitude journal that I created. Right here. So I created this gratitude journal and I put them on the cover of it. So I have a bunch of stuff like that. And I'm just writing the TV show. I just thought that what I wanted to do, I went to there and I wanted to film a documentary. I got written two of them. I got two that I wanted to do. And the guy, I talked to the executive director and we talked about the documentary and he said, hold on, you need to do a TV show. I was like, bro, not me, bro. Right. And that was pitched to me. And I said, hey, you know what I mean? I'm always up for a challenge, right? I already been to hell. I'm not afraid of anything, right? Just afraid of going back. Right? You know what I mean? So the challenge, so it was a challenge and I took it and it's been the most awesome experience, man. And you guys know that because you guys have your platform too. To be able to meet people weekly, I meet some of the most, how can I put it? Most, the people who are the most, that have just the most experience in this world that I'm doing in. They're most interesting lives. I sit with people every week that are and when you have a platform, you basically get people to come that you want to come and learn from. So that's been a good platform, but I really have that because most of the time in most of the media outlets, whenever you hear about people like us or you hear about addiction, it's always about people dying, right? And I get that. I respect that to the fullest, right? But at the end of the day, if you keep pushing that, then you're pushing hopelessness, right? For an addict that sees or somebody, or there's no hope for me, right? So I said, man, there's got to be people that's living and doing this thing, and I know someone. So that's why I built that platform and said, you know what? I'm going to push hope. Right, because you start seeing if we continue to show people living successfully and giving back to their communities, taking care of their families and thriving, and fighting the stigmas that surround around this disease, then you're doing the right thing, right? That's what I felt. So that's what Real Talk TV is about. It just continuously to push hope, man. I just think someone needs to see that because I wish I had that all the time. Because I think my life was in the beginning. It was hope, helplessness built on just the way I thought. And so I do that. I do a lot of outreach, man. I love what's going on. The center allows me to do outreach. I love going to the community, to the mayor's office. I knock on doors. I'm not afraid. I knock on doors. Able to get the mayor's office down. We came here and we never had, there's a Marlboro Alliance for prevention out here. We were never on their pod on their board. There's a lot of people sitting around there. And I said, we need to have the center. We're the hub here, man. So that's what I'm trying to present, that we're the hub, right? The Spectrum facility is put in here and we need to utilize it, right? So that's what I do. I go in the community and we're finally on the committee. And here's the deal. They used to have the committee at City Hall all the time, all their meetings. Guess where they're at now? Right? So we come here, they come down. Yeah, all these people come down, right? And they come, and here's the thing: if they enjoyed it, we are having little rifts in it because people, different perceptions about whether this is a disease or a choice. I think that's what becomes the barrier. A lot of people just, and maybe a little trust too, right? Because addicts and people who have substance use disorder, right, are not very nice people when they're active. Right. And we teach people how to treat us. Right. So I get, when we do things like that, they see us. So I'm not holding them totally accountable for them not really buying into everything that we want to do here. But I get it. So now it's just a process of just teaching them who we are today. And the more they come around us, they come down here, they love the center. They were like, oh, I'm like, yeah, that's friendly. Ain't nobody gonna come here. You can put your pocketbook down.
Gonna be safe. Darryl, I was in a training a couple of weeks ago with a lot of folks with lived experience, parents with lived experience. It was a parenting curriculum training. And one of the things that I think it was one of the parents with lived experience said that I think was one often things will stick with me, but it really reminds me of you as we talk, is that healed people can help heal people.
Yeah.
And I just thought that really stuck with me and speaks to, once you've done that work on yourself, that now you're in a better place, right?
Yeah.
To share that message of hope and to share, what your pathway was, but be open to all pathways. And you're just in such a great place to do that, whereas you had desire to do that before, but you hadn't done all the work yet, and so you get pulled back in, right? And now you have kind of steady ground under you because of all the work that you've done healing yourself.
And it is, you're right. And the thing is, the deeper you go, one thing I learned, at least, my buddy has he started a mental health class for men, a group for men, probably a powerful group. And I'm going to tell you something. In the group, there's like 500 years in prison.
Wow.
I'm talking about in the group, just our group, like 5. And these are men that I know that we all talk about. I got touched because, our ego and, the machismo that we had to put all these masks on for a long, dude, if you look at I'm telling you, if I could literally materialize all the masks I wore, I don't even think there's a room that could fit it. I'd have a mask of you. It was crazy putting on these faces, man, changing all these faces. And now you can just a little bit more just become you and try to show you just you. It takes a lot, man. Mm-hmm. Right. But it also takes a lot of digging, right? There's stuff that surface, but there's stuff that really, really connects us to the disease, connects us to self-destruction, right? That is embedded. It's like we say in the group, it's like almost in your bone marrow. Right, you have to get deep with this, man, and I think that's what last year, that's what I started to really just say, you know what, this is what happened, and I accepted. I can tell people today. I couldn't tell you that before because I was afraid to be judged. I was always insecure. I always wanted to be accepted, not rejected. So all those things played in me not being able to tell. But we have this group, and there's men up there that I'm like, damn, that's right. He's telling my story, but to me, I'm hearing like, damn, that happened to you, right? It's like I'm not really connected to minds too much anymore. It happened. I understand it, but it doesn't really have that power. I'm not saying I'm out of the woods with it because it's continuous, right? But it doesn't allow me, when I talk about it, I don't have that icky, that type of crazy feeling in my heart starts. I don't have that no more around these situations that happen. You know what I mean? Because I'm not to blame for them. I think another thing, I blamed myself for so long, right? And then you're dealing with identity crisis. It was crazy. In a world that said this is your identity, and you trying to get away from that. It took years to not identify myself as a loser, as a piece of garbage that someone can just trash. And I felt like that. I didn't let people know because I was so good at dressing that up, right? I dressed it up so everybody thought it looked. I was well, right? I was that apple that when you take a bite, you get a mouthful of worms. That was me.
And all
right?
Right, the mask that you talk
about. Oh my God, just man.
For this person, I'm this way. This person.
Oh boy, it's tiresome, isn't it?
It is. It's a lot of work, right?
You got to get high to do it, man. It's tiresome. It's
what I see with you is you've sort of siphon that energy from putting all these masks that couldn't fit in this room, and you did the work internally deep to your bone marrow to be healed, to start being complete.
Yeah,
because recovery is a lot of work. We say that all the time. Recovery takes a lot of work. Yeah. I was just talking to somebody before we hit record on this podcast. It's one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time, right? But as we heard with your story, it's well worth it. You get a publishing company with your kids' names and books that I didn't even know You had. I know we talked about books before.
Yeah, you can Google it. Yeah.
I have more books to add to my list to read.
There's a lot of journaling. Yeah, God is good. You know, when you come out on the outside, like I said, I met this other therapist last year who took me real deeper. I just came off a bad run, and he's just saying this is what it is. He's seen everything. I explained to him. He said, and he was able, because he cared. He was able to say, this is what we have to do. And I said, let's go. And I just wasn't afraid. And he took me there, man. And it was intense. Then I meet with him, and then I had to meet with the recovery coach, who's a female, right? And there was another issue. She was suggested to me, and I was like, female, because I was always told men stick with men and women, and I get all that. But the thing is, I want to be with anybody that has my medicine. Right? I don't care who is it. If St. Bernard has it, send them, right? Because so she was the one, and at first it was, but after the first conversation, it was like, wow. Right? Because I didn't have to try to sleep with her. She wasn't trying to sleep with me. We wasn't boggling. This was about getting me well. And we went there, and I think this last year I had more success in dealing with my stuff. And I can tell because the more you deal with it, the more you rise, right? Because I deal with stuff, and then it's like these weights are being dropped off, right? But it's a beautiful experience.
Right. I love your ability to share your story, because there's so much trauma work in being able to actually rewrite your narrative, right? With what actually happened, but taking away, this was my fault. This was something that I deserved. You can take the narrative of what happened to you, speak it out loud on paper and in other ways, and rewrite it to the way that it really belonged to be, not the way that your brain processed it, particularly when you were very young.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's just a beautiful thing, like I said, the freedom that I have today. And I'm not out of the woods as far as he tells me I still have to go. I still, therapy, I still have to apply, spiritual, I'm still in recovery. These things are just never, and that was another thing, man. I'm recovered, right? Right after you get so complacent in this thing, man, right? That's because there's a thing they're saying they have, a lot of people have a lot of years, but not enough days. And I get that now.
Yep.
It's a lot of years, yeah. But the more years you have, the more dangerous and more closer to your disease than you are, right? That you are, right? Because you become more complacent. And I'm listening like, wow, the way this thing works. And I think that's why all paths is a beautiful thing, man. And I would never subscribe to that stuff, right? It's just been the last year or so, the MATs, this and that, and this and that. I have somebody in my life that is on MATs, and I use, but now I look like, damn, at least this person can be a good mother. This person's not going to jail. This person's available, right? This person can be there. This person's not harming anybody, kicking nobody's door. Like the crime element, the criminal element, right? And the availability has, and I said, man, if I was proposed to this, I might have fought that. Maybe this person wouldn't be available. And if they were, they would be so irritable and discontent that they wouldn't even be fun to be around, right? And so now I'm like MATs, right? So I started being open, right? Because we're so closed-minded to all this, right? I don't care what your path is. I don't care if you got, a cheese sliced pizza next to a pepperoni, next to a vegetable. I don't care what type of pizza you got. If that's your pizza and it's working for you, making you available, right? And making you constructive in society and adding to society. And not only it's adding to society, if it's not allowing you to practice self-love, then do that, right? Because that's at the bottom line, Jesse, for me. And I'm big on it, self-love, man. Right? I gotta be my own best friend, right? When Valentine's Day came in and my significant other had an issue, she said, baby, you gonna buy me flowers? I said, yes, I'll get you flowers after I get mine.
Yeah.
Then you know what I mean? It's like, you're crazy. And it sounds so crazy. And there's revolution. But that was what I needed to do. I needed to go somewhere, buy myself a flower, and I sat in that same, and then I didn't go anywhere bigger than Price Chopper. You can get the flower and you can get a meal all in one place.
You got a one-stop shop.
Flowers are beautiful too.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I did that. And still parts of me were like, dude, you're insane, right? You're insane. It was fighting with that. But I did that. And guess what, man? It was dope. So now when I did something for her, it was just like really beautiful because I took care of me first.
Yep.
It's so important, right? We get stuck on taking care of people and making people, you know, the friendship. I learned about friendships, and I gotta be my own best friend. I can't be your friend till I be my own best friend.
It's putting that air mask on yourself first.
Yeah, you have to, man. Self-love is
It's
beautiful.
self-love. It's being comfortable in our own skin and
Yeah.
recovery, right? Being, grounded, being, you mentioned spirituality, and Tony Evans is one great example.
You know that, Jess. You know that.
Of course, yes.
Amazing.
And being the open to all paths, and I'm reminded of something I learned in recovery is on the how of recovery, right? HOW. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, right?
Yeah.
I need to get honest with myself, and you've been very honest with us on this podcast, and I thank you again for it, Darryl. Open-minded, right? We talked all about open-mindedness.
Yeah.
Right? Your willingness. I can see you right there. You're literally doing the stuff as we're recording. I can't think of a better place to record than at the
right here. Yeah.
Right?
Amazing.
That literally is the hub.
Yeah, it is the hub, and like I said, I want to give us, just real quick shout out to you guys, man. Appreciate everything you guys do. I have some stuff we can talk about afterwards, but yeah, I appreciate going on that. That was such a beautiful thing at Keith, man, to see these kids, man, Jesse, man. When that girl came to you afterward, man, I'm like, that's what this is about, right? That generation, and I mean, we want to deal with each other, but bro, we're not really targeted anymore, right? Because they got the people that are already caught, they got them. They got like bullseyes on the kids. I'm talking about 2, 4. It's all grooming. And if we can get to a place where we can bring some real powerful information, some real authentic information, right? Because a lot of times people get caught up because they only have half the math, half the information. If we could bring that, I know that we can put a dent in this thing, especially in the future generations. These kids are being so, and they're not per se addicted to drugs right now, but they got addictive behaviors, right? And they train them, right, to be like that, right? They get their minds at a young age. So it's very important what you're doing, very important that we do get on the front lines with, for these kids. And what we did that, you guys invited me to do with you guys at Keith Tech. That was so dope, man. That was like a dope experience that I want to do it again. Right?
Well, I have a feeling this is not going to be the end of our conversations. There's going to be lots.
Well, I know it won't, Lisa, because there's going to be another conversation next month.
You said we got you guys on there. You got you guys.
Yeah, we'll promote it through Airing Addiction too. So folks that have been listening to on this platform, you can hop on over to Darryl's Real Talk TV and watch us have a live recorded in person conversation.
Love it.
Fun.
And Lisa,
and I'm
I
sure
think
we'll do more prevention.
Yeah, this is going to be the first Airing Addiction that we both do in person.
Whoa!
So it won't be Airing Addiction, it'll be Real Talk TV, but it would add that element.
No, it's your twist. It's whatever you guys want to do.
Listen, if James wants to come record us while we talk on your show, or take the YouTube video and put it out there on the platform, we can do that too.
Okay.
He can come. You can invite him. We go in the studio. And here's the deal. It's your show. When you guys come, you're the guest. Whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, that's what we're going to do.
Perfect.
That's what we're going to do. You know what I mean?
Well, we could talk to you all day long, Darryl, but we get to continue the conversation.
Okay.
This has been wonderful. We've said it before. We'll say it again. We haven't had a podcast where the word hope does not come up. And I can't think of a better example of hope and healing and, paying it forward than you, Darryl. So thanks so much for being here with us.
One day at a time, right, Lise?
One day at a time. Thank you, Darryl.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys, man. Like I said, I just want to say, shout out to Athena and Carmen, the peers, and at the center. And if you're around
Marlboro, go hang out.
If you're in Marlboro, come see me, man. We can sit down. We can finish this conversation. If you're in Marlboro, come on. We can finish this conversation right here. The spectrums.
I love it.
Thank you guys, man.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for listening to another wonderful episode of Airing Addiction. Like, subscribe, do all the things so you get to hear us again.
Thank you. While we staying on 5 minutes?
Yeah, we'll let James.